Hello, everyone. Professor T, the People's Professor. This is our recording of part 2 of the Worship of Loss, the Liturgy of Lament. Now, the Thanksgiving Psalms, they were in the presence of the worshiping congregation in most contexts. Example, Psalms 22 or Psalms 26. They would testify personally of God's saving deeds accomplished with a ritual act and a meal, and even these psalms freed themselves from the actual sacrifice itself. Now, in the Bible, Israel always has this hard work of transposing its treasured narrative memory into contemporary practice. It keeps the treasured narrative memory and contemporary practice together by these sustained acts of liturgical imagination. The liturgical imagination or worship construct vision regularly performed is desired to raise the question from mesmerized children, what is this about? And when your children ask you, what do you mean by this observance? Exodus 12:26. And ye shall tell your children the day, Exodus 13:8. When in the future your children ask you, what does this mean? Exodus 13:14. The answer to the child's questions to perform the liturgy and to have adults capable of this contemporary interpretation. You will say it is the Passover, a sacrifice to the Lord, for he has passed over the house of the Israelites in Egypt when he struck down the Egyptians, but he spared our houses in Exodus 12:27. You should tell your children that day it was because what the Lord did and how he brought you out of Egypt. You will answer by the strength of the hand of the Lord. He brought us out of Egypt and the house of slavery. When Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the human firstborn of the animals. He killed them in Exodus 13:14. So the exchange of a child and a parent is designed via a Passover to make a compelling encounter between what is remembered and what is performed, both in a liturgical dramatization and in worship. So we're looking at the structural of the brain to understand how memory, in a very diminutive, truncated facet of function, works. So we talked about the reasoning memory, the cortex, the forefrontal lobe, occipital lobe deals with vision, parietal lobe, sensation, temporal lobe, memory, hearing, and the frontal lobe deals with your critical inferential ability to think, to process, to reason, to have logic, inductive, deductive thinking. These are the facets or functions of the brain that control memory: your limbic system. The thalamus receives information, it to the cerebral cortex. The hypothalamus, it monitors certain activities and controls the body's internal clock. The hippocampus, where memories are converted into long-term memories, short-term, and then sent to the prefrontal lobe for long-term executive functioning. So where's memory in the brain? It's kind of complicated, but for recalling pictures, the right prefrontal cortex or the parahippocampal cortex, and both hemispheres are activated. For recalling words, the left prefrontal cortex and the left parahippocampus cortex are activated. And in the hippocampus, it doesn't store long-term memory. Long-term memory, LTM, occurs in the cortex near where the memory was processed and held in the short-term storage area. So where's memory? Hippocampus and the nearby structures related to the ideal of transience. So parts of the frontal lobe is where your memory is located, but even more central to this absent-mindedness and the misattribution and maybe suggestibility. An area of the frontal temporal lobe related to blocking and the amygdala closely related to persistence and insistence, determination, resolve, resiliency. And not much is known about this area of bias. So brain memory is important for formation of new episodic memories, episodic memories. Important for encoding the in that hippocampus now. It's important for encoding the perceptual aspects of memories, novel events, places, and stimuli, and also important to the declarative memory, and especially as part of the medial temporal lobe. This is where memory is kind of generally housed, warehoused, platform in the brain.